All right. We are now on page 18, getting ready to start the block called Cherries. All right, for the cherries, we need our background fabric, 6.5 by 6.5. And you look, we cut that background fabric already out of the white. All right, and we marked it with a little piece of paper called cherry background. All right, so I'm going to go get that out of my pile. So it was out of that white striped fabric. Here it is, cut 6.5 by 6.5. Now, this being the background fabric, I am definitely going to cut shape flex and put on the back of that. All right, so I'm going to set that aside. So we cut the white. What else we need is we need the right cherry. And it says 2.5 by 2.5. So I'm going to look at the page and we changed this up a little bit, all right? The cherries, one was made out of leather and the second one is done out of fabric, and they both have satin stitches. I am going to do both of them out of leather, okay? And you have enough red leather to do that. Here's the red leather. I am not going to trim this leather down at all. I'm going to leave it like this. I'm going to stitch both of them, and I'm just going to lay this on top and let it outline both of the cherries, and then I'm going to trim it. All right, so that's how I'm going to work that. I'm going to do them both in leather. If you did not want to do that, then you would have one of the cherries in leather, the second one in fabric. You will have enough of the red words to use on that cherry if you would like. Again, I'm not doing that. I'm going to do them both out of leather. All right. So you'll see here on your instructions page, this first red fabric is a scrap of fabric for the cherry on the right side, and it needs to be 2.5 by 2.5. And I wrote next to it, I'm using the red leather. Okay, but I'm not going to cut it out. I'm just going to let it go like that. Now, the next fabric we need is the leaf. All right, so the leaves are down here in the green. So all three of these pieces we cut in green are out of the same green fabric that we supplied in the kit. All right, so here is our green fabric. All right, so one piece, the biggest piece we need is the watermelon rind. And that's 5.5 inches. So the strip is roughly 5.5 to 6 inches. And you want it to be 5.5 by 3 inches. All right, so I marked the first one. I'm going to cut that off. And this is the watermelon, all right, rind. So I'm just going to mark that on there for right now. Okay. So that's for the watermelon. And I'm going to set that in my pile of my little scraps. I don't have that many. This is not a huge project for me. And you basically should be able to get it done in like 2 evenings, you know, or, you know, a day with the pillow. So the other things I need out of the green is we need the cherry leaf, which is 2.5 by 2.5. And we need the flower stem and leaves. And the flower stem and leaves are 3 by 2.5. So I was actually able to just do a 2.5 inch strip here, make one of them 3 inches, one of them 2.5 inches. All right, so I am just going to cut this strip right off there. And I'm going to cut it again at the 3. I mean, these are marked. I don't know if you could see that, but I did mark them. So here's the 3-inch one. This is for my flower pot, right? So I have this mustard that we cut earlier for the flower petals. This is going to go with that. That's going to be the leaves. So I can just lay them both together and put them back in my pile. They're not going to, it's not really going to get lost. This extra green, okay, it's extra. We can put that to the side. So in case you need that green or you messed up a piece and you need a little bit more, there should be, plenty of green. So this is what I need for the leaf for the cherries. All right, so I have my leaf, I have my leather, and I have the white for the background. Okay, I am going to put Shape Flex on the background for sure. The leaf only has a decorative stitch. I'm going to put Shape Flex on the back of the leaf as well. All right, because I want it to not fray. And that's the best way to do it, is to put some Shape Flex on there. So I have this little piece from the first one I did left. So I'm just going to trim this, and I'm going to take these over, and I'm going to put Shape Flex on the back of both of them. And when I return, we're going to go over to the machine, and we're going to figure out what quilting design we need. And we're going to open it up along with the actual embroidery file and load our hoop and get ready to do our cherry block. All right, so here we are now. I have Shape Flex on the back of my background fabric, which is the white striped, and I put some Shape Flex on the green, which is going to be my leaf, and I have my red leather here. So what I want to do next is I want to actually go and look at page 4 again, and the cherry block is number 4, and I'm just going to go down here, and number 4, they suggested, this wavy line. I'm not doing it. Remember, I'm doing the swirls. It is a 4x4 block by block that I need to go find. So I'm going to go to my clear blue tiles. I'm going to go to the scrolls, and I'm going to open up the 4x4 quilting block. That's the first thing I'm going to do. All right, so I know it's a little hard to see, but I opened up my 4x4 block with my scroll, okay? The next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually open up the cherry block from the embroidery file, because I want to lay that right on top. Now, when I open them up and don't move them at all, they are going to be in the center of the embroidery field, okay? So here's my cherries, and there they are, one right on top the other. So no problem with that, okay? But what I will do is I'm going to actually move all of these to save stabilizer. I'm going to move them down like into this bottom corner here of my screen so I can stitch them all out together. And I'm not stitching it right in the middle. I am still using my big hoop. I'm just going to keep the same hoop as I go. But I just don't want to waste the stabilizer, so I'm going to scoot them down and put them down here in this corner. All right, and then we're going to go and I'm going to hit start, and we're going to start stitching. Okay, now that I have it moved in the corner, I'm going to actually start my stitching. So since I'm doing the block by block, I'm not starting right here yet, right? I'm going to stitch my it'll be like a 4.5 by 4.5 inch square. Actually, it'll be a 4x4 square, and where to put my batting. And then it'll be a 4.5 by 4.5 inch square of where to put my background fabric, okay? So I'm going to hit start, and we're going to come down here, and it's going to stitch that little tiny square down here. So I like to go while that's stitching and find some batting at the appropriate size. Because if I can find a size close to it, which I did, and not have to, take a bigger piece and cut it, that's what I would like to do. So I'm going to lay my batting down. All right, I'm going to hit start, and now I'm going to tack this batting down, and it should go around it twice to tack it all down. And then when it's done tacking it down, right, we're going to trim it. And we're going to trim it so we take the batting out of the seams when we go to assemble our pillow. Because that'll be less bulk in our seams. So it's going to go right on around twice. And then I'm going to trim. Okay, I have trimmed my batting. So now I'm going to hit start. I'm doing the third stitch of the embroidery file, and it's going to show me the placement line for the background fabric. And that's basically a 1/4 inch. You need to have a 1/4 inch on all 4 sides of your batting. Now, what you might want to do is this, because we have this vertical line fabric, if you want all the vertical lines to be going up and down, because if you look at your pillow, your flag stripes are going this way. Do you want the stripes on the cherries to go up and down? Then you want to place your fabric, the right way based on how your cherries look on your screen, right? My cherries are upright. So do I want the lines going that way, or do I want to change it up so that the flag lines kind of stay with the flag and don't carry down into this fabric? All right. So you kind of want to, kind of look at that and think how you would like to place it. It probably isn't too big of a deal, but it's something you can ask yourself, especially since this is striped fabric. I'm going to do the stripes up and down the same as I did the flag material. So I'm just going to place this down. I'm going to have a little bit of fabric all around, all 4 sides. I'm going to hit start, and it's going to tack down this fabric now. All right. But again, this is all part of the quilting, the block by block quilting. So it does these first 4 steps. Placement for batting, place your batting down, it tacks it. Placement for fabric, you lay your fabric down, it tacks it down. All right. Now, the next step is for it to actually stitch the quilting, which is all my little swirls. Remember, I'm staying with the swirl design. So I am still going to do it in white. So this is white on white. That's fine. I'm going to do all my quilting in white. So I'm going to start that, and we're going to quilt these swirls. And that shouldn't take too long. And if you notice, the next step is going to be moving on to actually starting the cherry. And that is, we already have our design loaded. Number 1 is the leaf placement line, and it's going to tell us that we need to change our thread to green. So when this is done quilting, I'm going to change my thread to green, and we're going to get started on doing that leaf placement line. Okay, I have my green threaded in. I'm going to stitch number 1 of the embroidery file, and it's going to show me where to place my green fabric. So I have my green fabric ready, and I did put shape flex on the back of the green fabric. So once it shows me where to place my fabric, I'm going to place the fabric, and I want to cover up that whole leaf outline here that it did. And I have this little thread to start with. I'm going to trim that off. All right, I'm going to place my green fabric down. Going to cover up that placement line. I'm going to hit start, and I'm going to tack my fabric down. Now when it tacks it down, it should go around it twice to tack my fabric. And again, I'm stitching it with a similar green as the color of the fabric. And this leaf does have a decorative stitch. So, pick a green, type color that matches the fabric, because you're going to see it, because it only does a decorative stitch here. All right, so you're better off matching or using exactly the same green that you're going to use to do the decorative stitch, so the stitch blends in. So all I'm doing here is I'm trimming my green fabric away. And again, I treated it with the shape flex so it doesn't fray. So there we have our leaf. Okay. Our next step is to do the decorative stitching of the leaf. So I'm going to leave my green in. When I hit start this first time, it's going to move my hoop back in place. I'm going to hit start now, and it's going to start doing that decorative stitch. So it does a little like decorative stitch inside the leaf before it starts doing the outside decorative stitch. Alright. Our next part is going to be actually putting our cherry in. So I will be changing my thread over to a red that matches the leather. And again, I am going to do both cherries in leather. Alright, just so you know. So I'm going to go ahead and change my thread to red. Alright, this is where I'm going to change it up a little bit. So I have my red in. I'm going to stitch number 4. It's going to show me where to place the cherry. Okay, and this is the left cherry, which is originally leather. So I'm going to stitch number 4 of the embroidery file so I know where to put the left cherry. Now, I'm not going to lay my leather down yet because I really want to stitch where the next cherry goes. So I'm going to skip number 5, which is the tack down right now, and I'll come back to it. All right, and I am going to stitch number 6 of the embroidery file, which is the right cherry placement line. All right, so I'm going to stitch that now. So all I'm doing is I want to know where to put both cherries. All right, now that I know where both cherries need to go, I'm going to back up, right? And I want to make sure that I'm on stitch number 5 of the embroidery file, because that's the tack down line that I'm going to need next for this first cherry. Let's see. Can you see that I have 2 cherries? You can't really see it too well, can you? Let's see if I can. If I show it like that. See how I have my 2 cherries? That's what I want. I want to know where to place my leather. All right, so I did not cut the leather, remember. I'm going to lay the leather right across the cherries. I can see this right side pretty good, and I can see the bottom. So what I like to do is line it up on the right side and on the bottom, making sure that I have it covered, and let all the extra hang out the top and to the other side, the left side. All right, so I'm going to hit start. And it's going to tack down the first cherry. All right. So this is doing number 5 of the embroidery file. All right. I'm not going to trim right now, but I am going to skip the next embroidery stitch, which is number 6, because that is just a placement line. I want to go to number 7, which will be a double line, which is the tack down line, and I'm going to hit start. So I'm stitching number 7 now, which is the tack down of cherry number 2. All right. Now that I have both cherries tacked down, now I want to go trim my leather. All right. Now, both of them have a satin stitch, so basically just trim close to the stitch line. Just don't cut the stitch line, and the satin stitch is going to cover that all up. So I don't have to worry about the edges of the leather. So basically, I just want to trim around. I'm not trimming the 2 leathers apart from each other. I'm just going to trim this outside part of the cherries. And we will be back to finish this up. Okay, so I have trimmed my leather, all right, around the cherries. Let me pull that up just a little bit. See if you can see that. And I think I just need to clip a little bit more out of this top little intersection here. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do number 8 of the embroidery file. And is it going to do a satin stitch around both the cherries, okay? Now remember, like I said, I did mine both in leather. You could choose not to. You have extra fabric. You could have done the one cherry in fabric if you would like to. So I'm going to hit start, and we are going to do that satin stitch all around the cherries. And of course, this is going to take a little bit of time. So I'm probably going to pause the video, and we'll be back when our satin stitch is complete. Okay, so I did the red satin stitch all around the cherries. It looks nice. The next step is to change your thread color to, like, they're suggesting like a charcoal color, right? And the reason for that is we're going to do like the little detail of the cherry, put the little dimple like in it, make it look more three-dimensional. So as you can see, I am loading up like a charcoal gray type thread. Trying to get my needle here. Not too bad doing it on film this time. Alright. So I'm going to hit start. We're going to stitch number 9 of the embroidery file. Alright. And it's going to, like I said, it's adding, I guess, you know, the little dimple and the stems and hooking up the leaf to our cherries. And this is the last stitch of the embroidery file. The next step is to actually remove the embroidery from the hoop and trim it. It does get trimmed to a 4.5 by 4.5 inch block. But remember, I'm not going to trim my blocks yet. So I will start preparing for the cake, which I think is the next block, is what we'll do next when this is done. But it's, you know, stitching right along, looking good. Gonna trim this thread off right there while the needle is way at the other end. Making that stem just a little thicker. Okay, so guess what? The cherry block is done. Alright, we will be back to do the cake block next.